We're live.
Hey everybody, it is Ernst, and today is Happy Mardi Gras. Yes, it is Fat Tuesday, and the final parades are rolling in an area that I had the honor of living at for about 6 years. The Baton Rouge, New Orleans, South Louisiana area. And just your last trivia fact before we move on with we got our beads, and as you can see, I got my special jester beads on today. Just a trivia fact: everybody believes that Mardi Gras in the United States actually started in New Orleans and South Louisiana, but believe it or not, Mardi Gras was started in Mobile, Alabama, and wow. And also, believe it or not, they didn't used to throw beads; they threw moon pies. Yes, you remember the old moon pies?
Yeah.
Yes. They had big parades, and they threw moon pies out to the folks as the Mardi Gras parade went on. But Mobile, Alabama is the actual real home of Mardi Gras. Although, we've had, the everybody believes initially it's New Orleans. And as a guy who has been there, I will tell everybody that is listening to this, and I am sure that Brian has a cruise that he could take, send you out of New Orleans. I will tell everybody, do Mardi Gras one time. you need to have, and you don't necessarily have to go down on Canal Street, which is in downtown New Orleans, where there's 400,000 people going absolutely crazy. What folks don't know is that there are Mardi Gras parades all the way from Alexandria, Louisiana, which is in the top of the middle center of the state, through New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and then on over into Mississippi and even Biloxi. And of course, Mobile will be, as they say down there, we will be rolling. That's when the parades roll today. So happy Mardi Gras, everybody. This also has a religious significance, but before we go into the spiritual idea of Stroke Tuesday, Brian, I know, am I right? I'm sure you will cruise somebody out of the port of New Orleans.
Oh yeah, a lot of good Western Caribbean cruises out of New Orleans.
Why don't you talk about your company a little bit and tell folks what you do?
Sure. I was off last week. We weren't airing last week because I was on a cruise. We actually, probably the best thing of being a cruise planner is trying out the different cruise lines, the different ships, different destinations. But my wife and I own a cruise planner travel agency, and we sell predominantly cruises. Probably 80% of our business is cruise business, river cruises, ocean cruises. But we also do tours, like the Holy Land tour that we have with New Life. So yeah.
Question then. I've always wondered about this. So you also book the Mississippi River cruises?
Yep. We have American Cruise Line does a lot of it. During the pandemic, it got more and more popular because people didn't want to sail over to Europe for their river cruises. Sure. So it's picked up and is even more popular.
Neat. That is, I can tell you as an entertainer, that would be one I would like to be able to work on someday, only because people don't know that on our side of it, we don't live on the ship specifically. We're just there in times to do our shows. And the idea that I could get on in the United States and get off in the United States would be a fantastic thing without having to clear. So you are watching Uniquely Lutheran, and we have started the show in a whole way because we are in a celebration day, but we also have Pastor Jeff Gross, who is the man and the boss and the pastor, and I think he will start us out with a prayer.
Thank you, Al. Dear God, it's the last day of Epiphany, and tomorrow begins Lent. And as we move from one season to the other, we are reminded that life is seasonal, and that as we move from one moment to another, we realize that you walk with us. And we pray that you be with us as we broadcast today. And we also pray that you be with us in our celebration as well as our contemplations. And we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. What a great prayer, because that's a great phrase, a celebration and contemplation. Um, Jeff, why don't you give us some background? Because when we first celebrated Mardi Gras, now some 2 years ago together, when we first decided to do these shows, you called it Shrove Tuesday.
Shrove Tuesday.
Shrove. I'm sorry, Shrove. And why don't you give us a kind of that background behind all of that?
I wish I knew what the word Shrove meant right off the bat. It's the last Tuesday before we enter into Lent for sure. It's a day when we eat pancakes. This is a day for eating pancakes. One of the traditions that I discovered is, as contrary to popular belief, Pennsylvania Dutch is not reduced only to Mennonite and Amish people, but there are a lot of Lutherans and Reformed Christians that are Pennsylvania Dutch too. It's an ethnicity. And the Pennsylvania Dutch people, who are parishioners of mine, brought me these lovely donuts. They're called Fastnachts. And they're what the philosophy is: you get rid of all the fat in your house, you put it in a great big vat, you boil it, and you stick dough in there, and it turns into a donut.
Wow.
So the Polish people, they call them punchies. And true to form with Polish, I can't spell it because it's all consonants and no vowels. But I've driven by a Polish bakeries and I said, "What's a bzz, 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 bzz?" "Oh, you mean a punchy?" It's like, "Oh, okay." Don't try to go phonetic when you're going Cyrillic. So, but it's the same principle. It's the same principle that we go to a period of austerity where you really deny yourself some of those creature comforts that can lead you away from contemplation. So that's really what Lent is about. It's emulating the 40 days in the desert.
Okay, so tomorrow we begin that season. We have services. Tell the folks what begins tomorrow and why we call it Ash Wednesday.
The imposition of the ashes tradition is an old ancient tradition on Ash Wednesday, where ashes are placed upon our forehead with the words, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return," reminding us of our own mortality and our dependence upon God. So Ash Wednesday really is a time of reminder of our imperfections and our need for a perfect God. And Lent is an opportunity for us to get a little closer to God. So it's a great opportunity for spiritual growth. And today was supposedly the day, Carnival, the festival of the eating of the meat, and also Mardi Gras, literally meaning Fat Tuesday.
Yeah.
Shrove Tuesday, similar, Fat Tuesday, and tomorrow's Skinny Wednesday. Or Ash Wednesday. I guess that's the way to look at it.
Now, does this symbolize Jesus's 40 days in the wilderness? Is there is there some biblical chronology?
Maybe there is an assumption that before Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness, he carved up and just filled himself up to give him just a who knows. I think the Shrove Tuesday part is more of church tradition than biblical, but the 40 days in the desert is definitely biblical. 40 days of fasting. And Fastnacht means the night of the fast, the night before the fast. That's why they're called Fastnachts. And so fasting can manifest itself in lots of different ways. Everything from don't eat a single piece of food, which is not probably the most realistic approach to 40 days, to depriving yourself of certain foods that are like candy or sugar or fat or pizza or whatever you give up for Lent.
So there's also what you give up for Lent. One of my favorite Lenten themes was not that you're not our favorite pastor, but one of my pastors growing up had a theme of not what are you giving up for Lent, but what are you giving for Lent.
Yep.
And it was that challenge of, of doing something extra, like you talk about the contemplation, everything like that.
Yep.
And I'm wondering is the events that lead into Holy Week now. Well, before we get there, because that is going to tie into our Holy Land trip. One of the things that I believe, and I always think of that every time I get to Ash Wednesday, is what am I giving for Lent? What can I do something special, different? Of course, look at me. I could fast for 80 days, 90 days, and probably get away with it with no problem. But what I thought was I wanted to take some dedicated time over the next 40 days into the Holy Week, and really, you both have inspired me with the trips and all the stuff to expand my knowledge. And a lot of you guys all know I'm a Martin Luther junkie, really love the guy. And there is a book that is pretty major, and it's not on I can go get it on my Kindle, but I wanted to show people something really that we don't see much anymore. Hey, it's a real life book with pages and words and everything like that. But this is supposed to be the ultimate Luther biography / story / everything, and gives you then a basis for looking up more about Luther and his writings and all those other kind of things. So after your Holy Land tour, Brian, I look forward to us offering in 2026 a trip to Germany.
Yeah.
And let's do a run. Let's do a 10-day run through and see all the things there. So maybe by that time I'll have some really cool stuff to talk about.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, let's do it. So, but we're gonna take that post. But what I want to challenge everybody to do, of course, we can all do that thing. Give up a little something. Be a little contemplative. Make sure. And something we talked about back on last summer, our days of intention, meaning that you have to, tomorrow we'll all get the ashes. Everybody gets the ashes. We all see the ashes, and then we take a shower and the ashes go away. And because life is life like it is now, suddenly, that's just another event that happened, and we're back at it, and we're not thinking about it. And what I'm asking folks to do is, you don't have to read a book, you don't have to write a journal, you don't have to do, but pick out, and it's nothing gigantic, all right? Pick out one little teeny thing that you are going to intentionally do each and every day through the next 40 days coming into Easter. And I think you'll find some real benefit to that. And to me, that's as much, I think, celebration is not a paradox of contemplation. I think you can celebrate and contemplate with the same thing.
Sure.
So as I say that this trip to the Holy Land that we've got coming up, I believe, is going to be both of those things. That's going to be a neat
I
thing.
can assure you it's going to be both of those things.
That's fantastic.
And most of which will happen simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brian, why don't you start out with giving them the basics, and then Jeff, let's talk a little more about some of the specifics.
Yeah. So it's the trip itself is right after Easter of next year. So it's a ways off. We do have a early booking incentive that if you register and make a deposit on the trip before this Easter, a whole year in advance, you'll be entered in a drawing to win a 4-pack of those air tags. So those air tags help you keep track of your bags.
Which we all know nowadays, yes.
Exactly.
After Southwest Airlines, after that, I bet you there's a lot of people that wish they had air tags. So that's a great incentive to get those. So
yeah, most definitely. So it's a ways off. You still got plenty of time. Just look for this flyer at church or give me a call and we'll get you set up. But you're very right. It's going to be an incredible trip to really kind of put context to what we've read about in the Bible so many times. And much of it based around happenings of the Holy Week, but the Nativity and in some of the Old Testament, there'll be just a lot of sites that we're going to be seeing that I'm really excited to actually see and put context into what we've read about or learned about in church.
Yeah.
And I think that's very true. Now, let's do the basics of the basics. We will be, if you're in this particular area, the price includes all your transportation. So we will be taking a bus from
Correct.
here to Miami.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep, all included. So what's included in the standard tour price is you can park your car here at New Life at Church. We will take a bus to Miami, and from Miami we'll take a direct flight to the Holy Land, and so all that is included in the standard tours. This is a customized tour. In the standard tour, some things aren't included, but Pastor Jeff really wanted to make sure that when you are done paying for your trip up front before we go, that you don't have a whole lot of expenditure there. So we included the lunches, we included the breakfasts, the meals, the entrance fees, everything, the tips, everything's included.
Wow.
Everything.
Now, when you say the gratuities are included too, that's a big, people don't know that until they start emptying their pockets.
Yep. Only thing that's not included is souvenir money. So whatever you purchase there and bring home as a souvenir isn't included, but really everything, as long as lodging and food and entrance fees and tours, and it's all included.
Okay, so here's a question that I have for you. That's more of a technical question, and then we'll get into the actual learning and excitement of that. I, as an international traveler for years, one of the first things I always try to figure out is money. Now, a lot of countries just take dollars, so we don't have to change out our money. But when we get to Israel and all that area, tell us about that. What is their?
Yeah, well, it's great to have credit cards. Most of these are touristy areas still. Like, it's not like we're going too far off the beaten path.
Right.
So most places will accept credit cards. You want to check your credit card, make sure you understand the foreign transaction fees that might be encompassed with it. Hopefully you have a credit card that covers that. But we will probably, if we're going to be paying cash anywhere, want to exchange that cash out.
Now, do we know
I've
what's
got a couple of thoughts or a couple of things to
Yeah.
say about. One of the neat things is the one who likes my American Express card and pays that balance off on a monthly basis and is attracted to that. We know there are businesses here where you can't use an American Express. You can pretty much use it anywhere in Israel. The which I thought was both terrific and dangerous.
Well, do they? I'm
But
sure
they do
a
have
currency. What's their
their
currency?
shekels.
Shekels.
And
Really?
if you were to purchase shekels, which
Right.
is literally their currency,
Yeah.
though that is the preferred currency if you go to like a national park or to a place that is sponsored by the state of Israel. Like if you go to we went to a nature preserve, for instance, and if you wanted to buy souvenirs, they prefer that over the American dollar. But by and large, there are very few places you can use an American dollar.
Okay. Well,
Very few places.
And I guess speaking from my own personal travel experience, I'm assuming we are going to arrive at the Miami International Airport well before flight time, and we will be in the international terminal. And the one thing I can tell you, if you do not change out some, I hear you on the credit cards and the American Express, but speaking as a longtime traveler, I want those, but I also want to know I got a pocket full of local currency too, because I've been stuck in Italy without it at one point and was not able. They were only taking at the time they weren't even taking the euro, and I had to, and we were scrambling. So I just say do some exchange. There are, they'll cost you more at the airport, but I would say change out $100. And I don't know, how's their currency balanced against the U.S. dollar right now? Do we know?
I'm not even sure.
I mean, that's a long way.
Well,
away,
the amount of time you'll probably be spending their currency is pretty small. It probably is a negligible concern. I'm more concerned, and I'd like to find out a little more. Probably call and I'll get back to you folks that are watching. on usage of cell phone.
Mm.
Because when I was there, it seemed like AT&T cell phone usage was a lot more universal. Although I do believe there are ways in which you can adjust your phone to the point where you can use your cell phone. It's something you probably don't want to do a lot.
Well, you can buy a package. I know that if you're on the major Verizon, AT&T, you can buy a package. However, you've got to buy that package. Don't try to do it after the fact.
Right. See, that much I didn't even know.
Right.
And things probably changed quite a bit since it's been about 10 years since I've been there. So I'm sure I found myself using credit card or using like phone cards in calling home, not frequently, but infrequently. But the beauty is I could totally FaceTime people with Skype. I was Skyping people.
Sure.
No problem.
Well, many people, I'm sure there will be internet accessibilities along the way.
Yep.
Many people love to be able to do stuff on their social media and everything like that. And I'm sure you guys will have a page on your social media while we're doing all that stuff. But Jeff, let's talk, and Brian, let's talk about the stops of this trip. And I guess I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but on any of these stops, what is there a relationship to the season that we're coming into with the Lent and Easter and some of these stops that we're going to be making along the way? I mean, I know that we are doing a lot related to Jesus' birth, but where we move towards Jesus and the crucifixion and all that stuff, what do we have?
I think most of those events would center around the last 2 days we have in Jerusalem. So there's stops in the Mount of Olives. There's the Garden of Gethsemane. So there's lots of those last 2 days of our tour have a lot of events within the old city, Jerusalem.
And what have you done this, Jeff?
I sure have.
What did you?
Well, if we do the Stations of the Cross, which we're planning on doing, it will take us down the Via Dolorosa, which is the road that Jesus took on his crucifixion, and it ends at the Church of Holy Sepulchre, which is the location tradition has it of both the crucifixion and the resurrection, both within this close proximity to each other. There's another place called the Garden Tomb. That is also a place that's outside of the Damascus Gate. That is thought to have been perhaps the place where it occurred. So there are two sites that are up for debate, and I'm not going to go into that debate. But I will tell you one really quick, funny story is, as I talked to a person who said, I've been to both tombs, and the most important thing is they're both empty. So that was the Easter message, and I thought, that's great. That's the Easter message. They're empty.
So tell us this, then. It almost sounds to me like, in a way, our Holy Land tour is almost a chronology from Jesus's birth towards the end of the tour, towards Jesus's death and crucifixion.
To some degree, it's more geographical, so we're not traveling so far to these events, but much of the chronological stories follow the geographical locations.
That's so cool.
And during too, like if we are going to Samaria to Jacob's well, we're going to see the well where the woman at the well was.
Mm-hmm. Really? Okay.
Yeah, and Mount Gerizim is the holy site of the Samaritans, which is debated. The Samaritans debated which mountain was God at, and between the Israelites and the Samaritans. So there is a lot of birth, resurrection, and everything in between.
Right. So if you for a guy like me who has a bad OCD order, I love the idea that we're starting at the beginning, and to some degree we're taking the journey towards the end on that side of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a culmination of some of the most incredible events towards the end. Not that they're all incredible, but it's everything in the old city really seems to be those things that Christianity are really centered around,
right?
And pillars of some of the events that are happening. But as you go through, we will start in Galilee and although Bethlehem is also towards the south.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we'll have to deal with some of the OCD because there is going to be some things that are out of order because Bethlehem is again closer to the old city, but where most of the life of Jesus in Galilee and Nazareth and such are towards the north. But in between will be all these things that happen in the Old Testament also.
No, okay. So tell us about that. What Old Testament things happen? I'm curious.
Oh, great. Well, you got Jericho, the oldest city in the world.
Right.
Joshua,
Joshua,
like the song,
right?
We got the
Just
song.
like
Yes,
Joshua at the Battle of
Jericho. I know. I
just
was
bring your trumpet.
yeah, I will. I'll pack it right up.
But yes, well, I guess we do see Bethlehem towards the beginning. So I was thinking that we were going to be starting in the north. So, but we do spend some time. So it is going to be rather chronological.
It is actually pretty chronological.
You look at that.
Well,
Mount Carmel is definitely Old Testament because I even mentioned on my sermon on Sunday that's where Elijah brought the fire down from heaven.
right.
So that's the Old Testament prophets, and also Bethlehem was the city of David, as is Jerusalem, the capital of David and Solomon. So you've got that, and in Herodian, which is one of our places that we're going. He's kind of an intertestamental guy. He predated Jesus and died shortly after he was born, but he was also a master architect. He was a bad guy. He was ruthless. He was cruel, but an incredible architect.
Unbelievable.
So he actually has some structures that Caesarea Philippi, for instance, which we will be seeing, and probably Caesarea Maritima, which is on the ocean, and then of course there's Herodian, which is a fortress that he built.
So the real basis of a lot of events in the Old Testament, which we share with our Jewish brothers and sisters,
right,
and into our New Testament and the Christianity, all happening on this event.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds
right,
absolutely fantastic.
It's a major city for three major faiths: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It's the third most important city in Islam. Is the Church of the Rock, the Dome of the Rock. Church of the Rock, that's a bad. The Dome of the Rock, we may be going up there depending on how things are. And that is the site where the old temple was.
Well, great. Well, we can wrap this up by talking about that very quickly again, because I want to reemphasize that. And Brian, you could speak to this through who you booked the tour through. Obviously, a lot of people's misgivings about doing this is about safety, because, we are in a zone where it seems to me like, we're always hearing about things constantly with conflicts and things like that. So why don't you tell us real quick about the people you're working with and how we ensure that safety factor?
Yeah. So tourism and the Holy Land tours is a big part of the economy in that area. Yes, there are different religions, and that they all kind of are in the same area, which causes some newsworthy kind of discussions and conflict. That's not too near, too far off, but tourism is a huge income there, and there's a lot of safety measures in place. We're using a company called Educational Travel Services, ETS. They're actually based here in Lakeland, Florida, but they are the premier kind of best of the best when it comes to Holy Land tours. And they monitor. They have they have people on the ground in the Holy Land, and they are always monitoring what's going on in all of those areas. So they would pull us, detain or I should say reschedule the tour if there was any hint of an issue of it not being safe. But they haven't done that in decades. So there's really. I'll let you speak a little bit more to it, but
that's
there's really
exactly right.
Everything I've learned about these tours is that safety. They're very, very safe.
Yeah. I would say my experience was it was a very safe field, and it's in their best interest to keep us safe.
Yeah, and now how estimated how long is the actual flight from Miami to Tel Aviv?
It'll be overnight, so it does take a long time.
About
8
12 hours, 8 hours.
Yeah, so because we'll leave in the late afternoon in Miami, so we'll leave probably morning here, drive hours, and then get on a plane that'll be overnight, and then we'll arrive usually mid-morning, maybe midday, depending on when those flights are. But yeah, that's the reason we're driving to Miami, is that we don't end up having to go to Newark or someplace that we have to.
Right.
And once again, as a longtime traveler, I can attest it is way easier to take a 3-hour bus ride to Miami and have a direct flight to Tel Aviv than the convenience of flying out of our home airport here in Sarasota or Tampa, which forces us to then go to Chicago or somewhere like Philadelphia or Newark or whatever, and then fly back across. There is nothing like a direct flight.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is when we went to Philadelphia in the last tour from Tampa, and like you said, oh, isn't that great? We'll just run up to Tampa. That's fine. Except they took all of our luggage out again and ran it through customs again.
Of course.
Because as I said, Israel's a very safe country. They want to keep you safe in Israel and Palestine. They want to keep you safe.
So obviously I assume we're on El Al Airlines.
That I don't know.
I think that's the state airline of Israel, but I mean, I'm not sure that many other. I mean, I know there's other commercial airliners that go in there, but my point being, folks, I know those of you that don't travel often don't understand the entire idea of what Jeff just said. If you can check your bags one time,
right,
and not see them again until we land in Tel Aviv, you're avoiding massive amounts of time and in lines and all those other kinds of things. So please understand that what would maybe seem inconvenient to people that might be coming from here. And I want to wrap this up by also having you guys mention this isn't just limited to people that live in our area of Florida. I mean, anybody can go on this, right?
We have options that are tour only. So if you want to arrange your own flights, you want to fly out of Minneapolis,
right,
someplace else, we have pricing options that are just a tour. We also have an extension. So in other surrounding communities here, whether you want to take the bus or not, you're more than welcome to join us. It's not really just our church. It's really anybody who would like to join us on this.
Because we are seen by many friends in other places. And by the way, hello to my new friends in Simpsonville, South Carolina, just south of Greenville. Was with you on Saturday night and had a great time, and hope some of you clicking into this today as I promoted the show. But you're welcome to come with us. And
wonderful.
So why don't we leave it with you giving out a phone number, website, anything that will help people out.
Yeah. So the phone number is 941-242-1030, or you can go to my website at simplyjoyfulvacations.com. So simplyjoyfulvacations.com, all run together, or email me at info@simplyjoyfulvacations.com.
So there you go, folks. Easy and also working very much into what we talk about the season. So for this season of today, Tuesday, as we start our day out, I want to, everybody's got some beads. It's a tradition that everybody gets gifts that you see with friends. So happy Mardi Gras to each of you guys.
Very much.
And we will see you next week. Hope that, what time is service tomorrow?
6:00 p.m.
6:00 p.m. for Ash Wednesday service. So those of you locally in the area, we hope to see you there. And on behalf of Brian and Jeff, I am Al, and you have been watching
Uniquely Lutheran.